Okay, so it officially shows me as live, and I already have a dog in my lap.
a mini raptor.
He is. His claws are so strong. Oh, you know what? He doesn't like this.
Let me know.
Yep. That's how I'll keep him away. So, anywho, welcome everybody to the first part of our discussion of Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park, and what a page turner this one has been. I know in our pre-discussion here with all of our wonderful hosts, we can't get over how hard it is to put this book down. So I want to first and foremost say a huge thank you to all of our hosts. I appreciate you being here and taking the time, reading, and doing all the things that you're doing as extra pieces to this read along. I know that, Ramsey, you have a wonderful Discord happening, and there's been so many amazing conversations there and funny memes and videos. I love the Tyrannosaurus Rexes that are running on the horse track. I've seen that one before, but every time I see it, it makes me laugh. When that whole kind of meme thing came out several years ago, I mean, it's just hilarious. Anytime I see someone in one of those T-Rex, I just laugh, like walking a dog on a trampoline, whatever. It's hilarious. I want to say hello to everyone in our comments. Thank you so much for being here. Please feel free to join in on any of the conversation. I usually will pull your comments through as well. So thank you for being here. I know, Laura, you have set up our wonderful bingo cards. And if you're following on that, I hope you're doing well. You still have, the rest of the month to do that. I know if you're reading Jurassic Park, it takes care of quite a few of the pieces on the bingo board. So that's super fun. And stay tuned, obviously, for much more to come as far as great videos from Ryan and Sarah and Victoria. We have so many awesome things coming. It's just unbelievable. Who knew that this book was going to be this fantastic and that we would have so many pieces to the puzzle, just making it even more fantastic. I know Ryan mentioned this last time, and I had a chance to see it this week, but the Netflix show, The Movies That Made Us, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
The Jurassic Park edition is phenomenal. It's really great. It brings back so many memories, and it really makes you appreciate the film so much more. So if you have some time, jump in there. Not only do they have Jurassic Park in that season, I think there's 2 seasons right now. The 3rd is coming, but there's Back to the Future, Pretty Woman, just so many amazing opportunities to see really great nostalgic and classic films just come to life on so little.
Yeah.
So before we get into any of our questions, I want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to introduce themselves, and we're going to make this a little fun. So please feel free to join in the comments. But the way we're going to introduce ourselves today is we're going to introduce ourselves, and then we're going to tell everyone what our favorite human character is. And I'll go ahead and go first. So I'm Danny with Spinelli Speaks. Of course, this is my channel here. I have been on a little bit of a hiatus lately, just a lot happening in my life, but I would never walk away from a read-along. So I've been putting all my time and energy specifically into the Jurassic Park read-along this year. So you might not see too much from me opposite of just these discussions, but I do regular programming as far as reviews, tags, all that other fun stuff. I have a lot going on right now, and I can really only put my energy into this read along because I want it to be fantastic. My favorite human character is Malcolm. I really like Jeff Goldblum, and that's not why I like Malcolm in the books. But when I think about Malcolm in the books, Jeff Goldblum is literally the only person that I can even envision as this character. When they described him, I'm getting on the plane, and the clothing he was wearing and his demeanor and the way he just talked to everybody and how incredibly smart he is with the math and how he just keeps poking and prodding and how just incredibly correct he is. I just love him. I just love the snarky attitude, his whole demeanor. So he is my favorite human character. Who would like to go next? Don't all go at once.
I'll go. Just because Danny already went with Ian Malcolm. But anyway, my name is Ryan. I'm from Seeking Stories, and I'll be doing some videos on comparing the book to movie adaptations of Lost World and Jurassic Park. And yes, I want to echo what Danny said. Go check out that Netflix show. It's a great behind-the-scenes look in Jurassic Park. But Danny stole mine, Ian Malcolm, because of Jeff Goldblum. Same here. Like, you cannot read Jurassic Park without hearing like Jeff Goldblum's voice in your head. There's no one else who could ever play this character at this point. That said, I feel like if it was real life, I would more like hang out with Grant, because he's just like kind of the chill, the archaeologist guy. You know, kind of somewhat of a difference between the book and the movie. Like in the movie, he was like didn't like kids at all. And that was his thing. And there's a line in the book that very clearly says that, like, you know, Grant liked kids. Like, well, that's different from the movie. And he just seems like, you know, a wholesome, fun human being to hang out with. And if it was real life, Grant would be the one I would chill with. Yeah,
absolutely. How about you, Ramsey?
Well, Ryan just said everything I was going to say. Like, I've watched the movie as many times as I've watched the movie, and it's fun to see Alan Grant like come to love the kids as they're like running away in the movie. Like to know that he just like when he realized that Tim and Lex were like stressed out about the fact that the divorce was happening and all that, he like went to the kids and comforted the children. Like, that's so different from what the movie was. And that's what the big moment where he's like cuddling the kids in the helicopter in the movie. You see his progression through the movie. Yeah. So that's kind of cool. Unfortunately, Elliot Sadler in the book she's just a nice pair of legs, which is unfortunate, because I think her in the movie, she's great. And then, Malcolm's great. Both of those guys are really the big fans. It was neat to see they've kind of tied, I can't remember his name. He's the guy that is kind of in the front car that runs away.
The PR guy and the lawyer guy are kind of the same character in the movie.
Yeah, and then he feels like in Jurassic World, the girl that watches the kids, it feels like he's that character.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't see that, but that makes sense. Yeah.
Grant.
Nice connection. I love the scene where she gets it, because I'm like, you deserve that. Yeah. Anywho, Laura, you wanna?
I'm cosplaying Muldoon, so.
Yeah. You know, I have a hat that I can wear, but my husband, he does landscaping and he's wearing it right now, so I have to wait until
next time.
Yeah, next time maybe.
Regis, Amy remembered.
Yeah.
Laura?
Can you guys hear me okay? Yes? Okay. I kind of like Elliot, even though she is very blah and milquetoast right now. I have hope for her in the future, that she'll become a little more three-dimensional and not just legs, as you very nicely said, Francie. But I also kind of like Dr. Wu. I mean, maybe I'm a mad genius. I don't know. But I am interested to see what's going to happen with him in the book compared to the movie. It's been a while. And I didn't pay attention to him that much in the movie necessarily. He was sort of there. And I like that actor. I forget his real name. But I'm liking Dr. Wu.
Well, and I think with Dr. Wu, for the movies at least, we really see him progress in a really weird, like a really demented way, where in the book, he seems very hesitant and very much like, we need to slow the dinosaurs down. And then in the movie, I think it's the first of the new franchise where it's like, whoa, he's like legit just trying to make crazy crap happen.
Yeah.
But anywho, that's a discussion for a different day. But that's interesting, Dr. Wu. Very nice.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Okay, so we are going to jump right on in. So I can see in the comment section, thank you everyone for jumping in there as well. We love that. So feel free to continue to do that as we jump through these questions. But our first question is usually the first thing that comes to mind when you start reading a book. And it's usually the thing that holds discussions when you meet other people, when you're like, oh, have you read anything good lately? And it's usually your first impressions that you're really talking about when you are talking with others. So I would like to know from our wonderful hosts and those in the comments, what are your first impressions of the book Jurassic Park? Whoever would like to go first. I'll go last since I went first last time.
I can go first if you want. So first impressions for me, man, this is well written. The interesting science that he clearly did a ton of research on, and then took that science and made it palatable for the average layman. You know, just your normal everyday man or woman could read this book and go, "Oh, that makes sense. I get it." And then how great can you, thank you, son, love you. And then just how well done, like some of the characters were done, really shows how they made this movie, and they took so much from the book and placed it directly into the movie, which was marvelous. Like there were so many moments that I highlighted. I've got my Kindle notes pulled up, and like every time I recognized a movie line, I highlighted it.
Nice.
Yeah.
It was I had a blast. I don't know if you guys watched my TBR video for this month. I completely went nuts about the book.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Ramsey, I'm gonna say the same thing you said to me. You stole everything I was about to say. But no, it's so good. I've never read Michael Crichton before, as I said a few weeks ago, and yet his writing is so just easily digestible. But it's not fluff. Like you can tell, so much thought goes into it. Kind of piggybacking off what Ramsey said about the science. It's cool because you have characters like Ian Malcolm, who like obviously is a mathematician guy who would normally be hard to follow, and then you have the brilliance of throwing in like how old is the kid, 10 years old, who loves dinosaurs. So you get a lot of the science from like his perspective. So you have this whole range of characters who all know somewhat of the science. You get it from all these points of view, so that you're not just constantly being bombarded with all this, exposition from the scientists, which I loved that. It was really digestible. Absolutely. So yeah, it was so hard to stop at the stopping point. I just wanted to power through. Of course, I've seen the movie, so know what happens. But still, like that's the cool thing. If you read a book and you know the story and it makes you want to keep going, like you can tell it's a good book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I honestly I keep looking for movie parts and I'm not really reading the book, so I have to constantly be like, no, that's not coming up yet, or no, he gets eaten later, or whatever it is. So while I'm reading it, I'm with it, but I'm constantly looking forward to the next thing coming up. So to bring it back all the time, but it's very easy to pull it back. Like you said, the writing is very readable and the science is digestible for a regular schmo. Like all of us were not scientists, we can keep up with it. And that was a really good point, Ryan, too, about how you see all the different perspectives, all the different ways that the science comes through from all these different people. So it's not just like hard science from so-and-so. And that was really, really well put. But yeah, absolutely. It helps with everything. Yeah, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for myself, I think the biggest thing for me is whenever I've seen the movie first, when I read a book, for some reason my brain goes, nope, that's not right. Nope. And it was different in this one because it started out so different. So the very first scene or the very first couple of scenes were fresh. They were new. They were things I hadn't seen. And then when we get to the scene where the girl gets bit by the lizard on the beach, I was like, hold up. That's in the second movie. This is wrong. And then I stopped myself and I said, no. This is Jurassic Park. And the music flared in my ears. And I was like, we're going to read it as if it's the first time. And after that moment, I think for me, I was just blown away on how quickly I was reading the pages. They were flying through. And, typically I'm a pretty fast reader. I mean, for most of us, we read a lot. So we've picked up little tricks and whatever of skim reading or however we like to read where we can get a lot done in a month. But with Jurassic Park, I sat down with it twice to read this section.
Wow.
And the second time I blew through so many pages because it was so easy to read. And we'll talk a little bit more about writing style later. But I think my first impressions was, why the heck have I not read Michael Crichton before? Like, if this is his writing style, if this is how it is, it really reminds me of why I love Dan Brown so much, which everyone gives me trouble for because it's like, Dan Brown's not a writer. Rah, rah. But I love the fact that I'm just flying through pages. I'm loving every moment of it. I'm just like ripping through the story. And even though, like we've all said, it's full of this science, it's full of this math, it doesn't like drag you down like, oh no, the whole third iteration is all about the science. It literally is action packed the whole way through because it puts the science in there, but then it like marries it with the actual life event, how this is like crucial to the fact that there is a giant dinosaur right there. I did find as a first impression when they walked in and the brontosauruses were just hanging out right there, that was a little lackluster to me because I was like, no, it was so much more magical when they like drove out because they didn't know yet. And so that I don't like it, but you know what? It is what it is. And that's what movie makers do is they make good things better. So, well, in some cases, I guess. But that was my first impression, was blown away, super excited that I was able to like really blow through it and get things done. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, you were talking about the third iteration. Like there were so many graphs.
Yes.
Interesting graphs.
Yeah.
Like listening on the audiobook, I had to like pause it and be like, wait a minute, there's a graph here. I need to check this out. But yeah, like pages with like tons of graphs in them.
Yeah.
But you're like, what? 36 raptors? What?
Yeah. It's plot and conflict driven. So he throws in the science when we need to know because the stakes are high.
Yes. Which, okay, so little like side question here. So when y'all read books like this where there's graphs and stuff, do you really read all of the information on the graphs?
If it's a book I really am into, yes.
Okay. So I'm like a hard 50-50. Like in most cases, I'm like, I don't care about any of this because you're just going to explain it. So let's go. The only graph I read though was when they were looking for those dinosaurs because I was like, they're raptors. Because if y'all remember from the kickoff show, my number one fear in life, our real fear, is that a raptor is going to come out of nowhere and kill me. And when we see those raptors on the boat, I'm like, see?
Yeah.
It's a real thing. It really happens. They just get off the island. Nobody cares. Bye.
Oh, I think he left.
Can you imagine how much scarier that would be in the movie? Just have two raptors hanging out on the side of the boat.
Oh my gosh. Like,
yeah.
But it's not just two. They were the fastest growing. There were so many. They're like, we should kill all 8 of these raptors. 8? There are 30. There are 30 just randomly out there.
Just hanging out.
It legit was frightening. I was like, oh no. Oh no. I don't know. This is real. This is getting too real.
That moment when Malcolm's like, put in 300 is your query. And like, why? Like, just humor me. That was such a Malcolm moment.
Yeah.
But
and how realistic for that glitch to happen and how significant of a problem because it's true. Computers are not all powerful. Computers will only do what you ask them or program them to do. So the fact that they're all like, well, why wouldn't it show me? And then Midri's just in the back going, well, you didn't tell them to do that. It was such a realistic moment that you were like, you're right. it could be more than 300. But it's obviously it couldn't do 300 because it was a little bit less. But that moment was like so true to the fact how people like just rely on technology because, oh, it's technology, it's much smarter. It's not AI, it's a computer.
There needs to be a real brain behind it.
It gives you an answer. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I just want to there's a few comments that I just missed, but I think it's Monique, right? I think I enjoyed seeing him bond with Tim in the book and reading that actually likes kids because it's impossible not to like any group so openly this. Yeah, that was a great line. And we'll talk a little bit about the differences between the book and the movie a little bit later. And that's one of the big ones that I noticed. And I think Ryan and Ramsey, you had mentioned it too. So definitely. And Naomi, yeah,
right.
Because I'm going down the list and I'm like, whoa, that's a big jump. What are those? And I was like,
yeah.
Because I was expecting it to be those little ones.
Yeah.
The beach, and I'm like, oh my God, it was the raptors.
Well, because it's like a couple of chapters earlier, Tim was like, I know I saw a raptor out there. They're like, no, there's no way you saw a raptor. But I know I saw one.
Yeah, I know. And then Tiffany, surprised the contrast real sweet raptors are, but the adults are vicious. You know, and to me, when that baby scene comes up in the nursery and like Grant's trying to like manipulate it and like really test it out, and they're like, no, we need to nurture it. And I was like, do you know how smart raptors are? Do you know that thing is just waiting for you to not look so it can eat your face? Yeah. Like,
yeah,
not a kind dinosaur.
Yeah, Muldoon mentioned like, not only are they the best creature I've ever had, they escape all the time. They can open doors, which we see in the movie. You know, talks about, you know, all these different items. And then where you're talking about the technology, when they sat Nedry down, they're like, why is this doing this? It's like, because that's what you told me to program it with. You gave me no information.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't even there. He was programming from the mainland.
Yeah.
And you know, that like it makes a whole lot more sense about him being so disgruntled.
Yes.
Because he's programming from the mainland with no information whatsoever.
Yeah.
Expect to make miracles, and then they didn't want to pay him on top of that.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah, that came out way more because I feel in the movie you just think that he's just a scuzzy guy.
Yeah.
He is, but he also, I mean, he was kind of taken advantage of a little bit with the fact that they were kind of just like, do this, we're not going to tell you what it is, and then we're not going to pay you either.
Yeah, he actually has a motivation in the book.
Yeah. But anywho, let's move on. I think that was awesome. I love getting into like the, you know, those kind of thoughts because it's like all these things when you're done reading, you're just like, this happened and then this happened and then this happened. But now, so we, in our kickoff show, we kind of talked about what our favorite dinosaurs were. Now after reading a little bit, has that changed for you? Do you have a favorite dinosaur that is in the book now, or do you still stand true to your favorite dinosaur from our previous show?
I think I still hold true on my side. I said the T-Rex before, and that might change by the time the book is over. But I just love how the scene where the T-Rex attacks the Jeeps. Like, I mean, I haven't seen the movie. Like, I know how the scene plays out, but he wrote it so like in a heart-pounding way that like I'm like nervous reading the book. I know they're gonna be okay, but just the way he writes like the dinosaur like screaming and roaring, the adjectives he uses for all that is just so good. So that just made me stick to my choice even more, I think.
Yeah. Laura, how about you?
I really like pterodactyls still, and they're not so much in the book so far. But I'm just liking everything that's coming through, and those little guys too at the beginning. They seem so creepy to me because they're like, you know, chickens, but very much not chickens. I don't know, I kind of like those guys too. But yeah, I'm just here for it. I don't think they exist in this book, but we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't think we see any pterodactyls. There's reference to like where they're going to be because there's like maybe a ride that goes through there or something, but not anything that I've read so far.
Yep.
Ramsey, how about you?
I don't think mine have changed. They don't have the Ankylosaurus, so you know I have no different opinion on it. I know the Stegosaurus and the Triceratops were kind of heavily featured. And I thought it was really neat the way they talked about the Stegosaurus maybe having, was it gullet rocks or whatever for like birds, and the idea how possibly they swallowed rocks to help digest food. That's like, what an interesting idea. There's no science on it because they're not living animals, but he was able to create something where, put forth an idea that's a possibility, and then, show a way that it could actually happen. And then the consequences of having toxic plants that, they don't eat them, but they're eating the rocks that the toxic plants are sitting on top of. So they're getting the toxicity inside them, and how these animals have not been alive for years and years and years and years. So we're having a crazy shift. Malcolm pointed out too, like, we're not containing nature like in a zoo. We're creating nature and hoping that there's this amazing situation. I like, it's so much fun. I could talk about this movie for hours.
It's so good.
But yeah, I'd say the Ankylosaurus is still my favorite. I mean, I love the T-Rex, but
yeah. I mean, and I know in the kickoff show I said Brontosaurus, and I really do enjoy them. They were really kind of like meh in the book. It was kind of just like, look at all these tree trunks, and it was like, But I mean, I still really love that dinosaur. And truth be told, all the the carnivores just freak me out. So though the raptors are so incredibly scary and amazing as far as like what they can do and everything, and I'm intrigued and so horrified by them, I still just can't say they're my favorite because they scare me so much. So yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with mine. But I'm loving getting to know each of these dinosaurs. I think obviously because a film can only give you so much, like the action and the visual, I'm loving how in the book we're getting such great descriptions of their coloring, their intelligence, their ways in which they attack. Because for me, it reminds me of how Alan and Ellie are viewing all of this, because they've studied these creatures for so long that seeing them in action is just something that blows your mind. And I think for me, I'm seeing it out of their eyes. Like, for them, these are living fossils, like, like, oh my gosh, like this thing, and even when they are describing the one where that has the poisonous ink, they tried to remove the glands, but they can't find them. They can't figure out where they are. So it's like, is that something that they've adapted to? Like, oh, you're going to try to like take my defense mechanism away? Does it move? Does it, you know what I mean? Like, how do they consistently have this poisonous ink? And that whole scene with Nidri where it was just like shooting. And I was like, oh my God, this is so insane. And then when he like literally describes, like, he knows that his head is in the thing's mouth. I was just like, oh my God. It was so good. Yeah. So good. Oh man.
It makes you actually feel bad for the character.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
Or maybe it just fuels your fears more of dinosaurs, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, because there's no like negotiation. There's no like, no, please no. Yeah. It's like, oh crap. I'm a monster being.
Yeah.
Well, we are happy that you are loving the discussion. We
agree.
I am. Awesome. Okay, so let's move on to our next question, which goes into something we've kind of been discussing throughout, and definitely through our first impressions. But let's talk a little bit about the writing style. What did you think about the writing style, and do you feel like it is readable?
I'll go ahead. It's having never read Michael Crichton before. I said it earlier, like, it's just, he writes in such a fast-paced way that like you could read 50 pages and you're like, wait, what just happened? And like, I'm trying to figure out like actually why. And I think it's because he writes just these scenarios that are so not just engaging, but want you to find out what happens like more. Like even having, of course, seen the movie a bunch of times, it's like he always just leaves a little bit of a mystery as far as like, well, how are they going to get out of this circumstance? We know this conflict's coming up. We see it foreshadowed by the way the scientists are talking, and then we jump back into the car, and we know that the characters don't know that the voltage, the electric fence is down, but the other characters do. So I feel like the characters, one set of characters always knows a little bit before the next set does. So that gives us a little bit of just extra tension that builds and builds and builds and builds, because all the characters know things, but not everyone knows everything. So it makes this kind of feel for the people that were in that room with at the time. So I think that's why one of the reasons why it's so fast paced, other than the fact that, I mean, word choice is great. He's obviously a gifted writer, but beyond that.
I think it's neat because it reminds me of how like film and TV works, where they'll end a scene that, even though it's with a different set of characters, like you were saying, it leads right into the beginning of the next scene.
Yeah.
And he does that with these chapters where the chapters are short because
really short.
They're the perspective of different people or different scenarios. And I love that because you're getting the full picture. You're understanding everything. Sometimes when you're reading out of first perspective and it's only out of one character, you're always left wondering like, well, but what was that other person thinking? Would they have done it that way? But with this, you're really seeing everybody. And it's fascinating because, like, especially with the kids, they get, broken up. So I can't wait to see how that ends. But like even the characters and like the Dr. Statler is gonna, I think, find Needry. I really think that's what's gonna happen from what I just read.
Yeah.
And it's like, because you're led up to that, because you're like, oh, a dead carcass? I know who has a dead carcass. So it's just, I love that, like, leading in and the different perspectives, because it makes it go by so quick, which is fantastic for this read. Anyone else want to share on that one?
I've read, this is not my first Michael Crichton book, and he does something. I'm fairly smart, I think, but I'm not the smartest guy in the room in most situations. And so the way he makes the science so believable and understandable, he did this one thing in Sphere, which is fantastic. If you guys like Jurassic Park, go read Sphere. It's great. But he actually has your main character fall asleep during the scientific briefing, because he's like, you don't really need to know this. I'm going to kind of give that scientific information, but he falls asleep to kind of put us in that layman's seat.
Yeah.
And he does some cool stuff like that here, where, it's conversations between us and Ian Malcolm, or it's like Ian Malcolm realizing something, and he's like, I'll tell you about it in just a minute. Let's let this kind of work into, like, when he's like, I know how they're having babies. Like he figured it out.
Yeah.
Going back to those charts where he talked about, you showed us that bell curve that, it's been a consistent bell curve. He's like, well, if you had been releasing animals at certain points, it would be a gradual curve. And like totally makes sense when it's explained the way he explains it, because you'd have your population, and you'd add more to the population, so it'd get bigger, animals would come and animals would die, and then and so I'm like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. Algebra was my worst subject, but I understand these graphs.
Right? Yeah, he waits to interject the science, so we as the audience need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Some of the chapters too, they are so short, and like how it keeps pulling you forward, not just with the constant like dropping hints of what you need to know coming up next, so it's building tension. But it reminds me a lot of James Patterson. I mean, not to like Dan Brown and everything, but because he has like 2 and 3 and 5 page chapters, and it's just a stupid cliffhanging thing where you end and you have to keep going. You can't just like stop at a chapter. But it's the same kind of compulsive readability where you're just like flipping pages like a crazy person, because so addictive.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And I think too, going into our next question, so we'll just kind of like jump right on into it, is the question about the science. As a reader, does the science make sense? Do we challenge it? Do we question it? You know, what are our thoughts about that? We've been alluding to it a lot. For me, I don't know anything about any of this. So I just go, sure, sounds good. But I wonder for those scientists out there, and I wish Sarah was here, but, you know, do we question it? Do we go, I don't know if that's right? Do we want to look into it and say, I don't know if this is possible? For me, no. There's so much time put forth in that third iteration to explain so much, and then the graphs and all of this, that, I mean, it could all be crap. And I'd be like, looks good.
Mm-hmm.
Same here. Seriously. I mean, I watched a fair share of Science Channel and PBS documentaries about this kind of stuff. But again, like, it just, sure, that's fine. Yep, totally get how that makes sense. Absolutely. But I have no way to verify or check or whatever. I'm like, yeah, that looks good. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think it's on that note, it's the whole idea of, you know, suspending disbelief for a fantasy or really any story. I mean, we're entering some sort of made up world, whether it's, you know, Middle Earth or Narnia or Hogwarts or anything like that. It's we're doing the same thing here. We're saying, here's the science, you know, obviously it's some of it is based off of, you know, true science, but, you know, the whole idea is made up because it hasn't been, you know, done before like this. So it's based on the characters, based on the plot, based on the conflict and the suspense and all that. Do we buy into those characters enough to believe that what these characters are saying could be true? Do we believe the scenarios enough to make it true? I think at that point, whether the science is real or not is almost irrelevant in a way, just because we believe it through the minds of the characters. Sorry, no, I'm not a funny person. I don't have anything to make you laugh.
Well, I think too, like you're alluding to, the characters, because they so interweave each other. You know, we have Dr. Wu explaining this, and then you have Hammond kind of coming in and being like this, and this, and then we have Malcolm coming in and being like, but this, and this. So it's compounded by each character giving their little pieces of information that it all comes together, and the characters themselves believing it more and more because seeing is believing. So the science is computing with what they're seeing, and they're like, wow, this could actually work. This is actually working. This is a real thing. And yeah, when the frog, the amphibian piece came up, I remembered that from the film, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, why would, like, to me, I was like, why wouldn't a scientist think of that?
Right.
Like, wouldn't you say, okay, we don't want these creatures to procreate, so probably shouldn't use amphibians because they can be, you know, they can change their gender or whatever it may be. I was like, idiot.
Well, and it's so cool because it's like you don't, it's not this type of story where the scientists are like the all-knowing characters who, like, you know, they have all the answers. Like, they make mistakes. They made a ton of mistakes so far. So it's essence some humanity to it, I think.
Yeah. Well, and because it's never been done before. So, and because of the time crunch and the secrecy and everything, they're just kind of like, look, here you go. Here's a dinosaur.
Well, it was funny too how they kind of labeled the dinosaurs like software updates. You know, like, well, this worked, this didn't, this worked, this. There was a couple moments where I was like, okay, because I watch a lot of YouTube, and so I'll watch, you know, this new thing just came out and this or what. So there was a couple moments where I was like, okay, we know that's not true anymore. I know that's what we believed in like the late 80s, but I just went with the whole, it's fiction, and I'm going to enjoy it for just enjoying it. I don't want to be like, that's not 100% correct there.
Yeah, really.
Right.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. I really liked in the beginning too, one of the labs when they were passing around that the chicken dinosaur. I can't remember what it's called, but it's one of the first dinosaurs that we come in to play with, and that Tech walks through and she's like, oh, who drew the dinosaur? And I was like, yeah, good for you for recognizing that it's a dinosaur and not whatever kimono dragon, whatever you're trying to call for. Like I was like, yeah. And then she went kind of behind their backs and kept pushing it through to be, looked at. And then when it got to Grant, he immediately was like, yes, that's a dinosaur. So yeah, all those little pieces, though small pieces of the whole, really continue to solidify the fantasy, the real like storytelling of this book. Yeah. Anything else on that topic?
Just that it's good. And I want to keep reading.
Okay. So speaking of fantasy or disbelief, how do we feel about Hammond? So Hammond is our creator, essentially, the head honcho who has created Jurassic Park with all of his billions of money. Oh, we haven't even talked about the miniature elephant in the room. But is he just a hopeless optimist? Just one of those entrepreneurs who is trying to make, dinosaurs come alive for the future children of the world? Or is he a big cuckoo bird?
Well, up until like the few chapters before the stopping point, I would have definitely said a big cuckoo bird. But then like you get out in that last little interaction that like, I mean, he's 77. He doesn't have much time left. And he's like, I just want to live to see the wonder on the children's face. And like, and I know he's like cynical about all that too, because he's like, well, rich children, how about? But still, it's, he obviously has some sort of goal and dream. There's the billions and trillions of dollars he wants to make that, that was that whole aspect of it too. But I feel like in his heart of hearts, like he does want people, he wants the joy. I think as like almost booktubers get in a way of a joy of seeing other people enjoy our videos. I think on a grander scale, he wants the joy of seeing people enjoy what he's done. That said, I think he is still a great big cuckoo bird in the end, but it gives him a little bit of humanity, seeing that little bit of insight into his heart.
Yeah. I think, and I think that it was Monique, the ginger librarian, brought this up earlier in the comments. But when Dr. Wu and Hammond are having that conversation over ginger ice cream while everyone else is getting eaten by dinosaurs, it was at that point where I was like, ooh, you just crossed the line into Cuckooville. Because I feel like in the beginning, you see that fascination in science. You see that fascination in bringing something back, and that fascination in making children happy and all that. But in that conversation with Wu, he is like on a tirade about money, about I can charge this and I can do this and tens of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars, and we can make this and we can make that and we can sell everything. That was when I was like, ooh, this isn't about the miracle that you've created. This is you making money now. Like, so for me, that moment, he like something switched in his brain and he just wasn't the same character that I felt like I was reading previously. I felt like his real purpose came through, and I was kind of like shocked by it because from what we remember from the movie, he's so sweet and like so in it for the dinosaurs and like the children and all this stuff. And towards the end, he sees where like, oh crap, like this probably wasn't a good idea. But when they were sitting and talking there and Wu's like, we need to slow the dinosaurs down, or we need to fix things. He's just like, no, money. Like, we need to get this place open now. So that for me was like a turning point where I was like, oh, this guy's a little something. Anyone else?
Monique, the ginger librarian, just brought it up. The comment went weird on the screen for me, but it really, he's almost vindictive. Like when he's not willing to pay Nedry for the things that he's doing, he's not willing to lose any money. Like one of the big things that I brought up on another video was there's 2 rocket launchers on the entire island. Like there's no way to defend yourself because he's not willing to lose his product.
Right.
And so to think of like who was he talking about at one point? He kind of did do in the movie where he was mad at Ian Malcolm, but it was more like, I just really hate that guy. That guy is just trash. I don't want him anywhere. Like, and it was so much more like in the movie we get only that one sliver of Hammond, that sweet, kind, gentle old man. But in the book, we get the businessman. You know, we get he may have that sweet side, but we're, you know, I guess like when people really met Disney, and yeah, he had all those sweet sides, but you know, he classically didn't like Jewish people.
Yeah.
Yeah, Helen seems so avuncular and kind and nice, just like, oh, in the movie, like, oh, what a nice guy. And then, yeah, you do really see the big change, like you said, over the ginger ice cream scene. Like, wow, this is not this Mr. Rogers appearing kind of person. This is something else entirely, you know. Like, he has one face and then there's the real him, you know.
It's almost like he was blinded by ambition. Like he had gotten so far and like, no one is going to stop me now. Like we are so close to the end. And like, but yeah, you bring up a good point, Ramsey, about the rocket launchers. When the safari guy, who we've not yet talked about, but I like him too. I think he has great insight when he's like, at least I have the rocket launcher, and then the Jeep's gone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just so ill. And even when the kids show up and is it the lawyer is like, what are they doing here? You can't have them here. Like the insight that so many of these people had, knowing this is not good. Like this is not going to be a good situation. Now, many of them didn't know what they were walking into, certainly. But yeah, all of the foreshadowing that we see throughout the reading, like you just know, like who is going to survive?
Yeah.
Because we don't know. And the book and the film are going to be different there, I feel. You know, we don't know. There are characters that are there's extra characters, so to speak,
right,
that that weren't put into the film. So it's anyone's game. I mean, who knows? We could see a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you could argue too that like maybe not all, but maybe like 80% of the problems that the characters encounter could have been fixed if like Hammond had just listened and like put aside his ego.
Yes.
But then we wouldn't have had a story. So
yeah, exactly. Even when because I was thinking about it when we were reading, and they mentioned the generators and how big they were, and how that carries all of the power for the electrical circuits and everything. And I had forgotten about the storm at that point, but I'm like, I wonder what happens if they have a power outage. Do those generators just turn back on? And then when it started to storm, I was like, oh yeah, because of the security, like it's Nidri who shuts it all down, and even him thought it was going to be so easy to just shut everything down and like be back in 6 minutes. And I was like,
Idiot.
I don't know what you were thinking. Like, no. And I mean, he wasn't thinking there was going to be a storm, but he's never been, from my understanding, he's never been there before. So for him to be like, oh, I'm just going to drive out to the dock, hand over this Barbasol can, come back, and then I'm going to be on my merry way with my can of Coke that I went to go get, you know? I just, oh man, what an idiot. So anywho, yes, I just want to make sure that we see these here. The next question is actually a question again that we have tippy-toed around pretty much throughout the entirety of our discussion, because we all have seen the film. We've all grown up with the film. So it's hard to not separate the two. But now that we have read or reread Jurassic Park, we know that there are differences between the book and the film. Namely, the fact that Alan Grant in the book loves kids. He is very interested in Tim and his interest in dinosaurs, and really, gravitates towards the children. Whereas in the film, Alan Grant, in the very beginning of the film, does a little raptor claw story with the boy and like scares the bejesus out of him. Like doesn't want to touch the kid, like get away. And then we see that evolve. Also, the children themselves. In the book, the girl is the or in the book, the boy is older and the girl is younger, whereas in the film, the girl is older and the boy is younger. Another little one, like the sick dinosaur in the book, it's a Stegosaurus. In the film, it's a Triceratops.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So with all of these changes, what purpose does that serve? How do you feel about that with the changes, the extra characters? How do we look at that from a reader's standpoint to viewing the film? Or how do we feel about it?
That's a good question.
I'm sorry, I was a little distracted. What did
No,
you say?
you're fine. I have a few ideas. So specifically with the Alan Grant piece with the children, I think what that really does for the film is it creates an evolution of his character.
Yeah.
Because every film needs some kind of softness to it, especially when it's a Spielberg film. I feel like he always has something comical and just endearing about some piece of the film. So even though this is a movie about dinosaurs, it's also a movie about the human character. So when we see the evolution, that's really endearing. Like, you really grow to enjoy Alan Grant and his relationship with those kids because they're the main focal point of the film, because they're really lost.
Yeah.
And the things that are out there are scary. In the book, I think it still works because it makes their relationship an immediate one, because they are complete strangers and he is there to protect them, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll almost, maybe I'm stepping on most of the entire booktube community's toes when I say this, but I'll almost always defend the director in a lot of book to movie adaptation choices, if it's a good adaptation like Jurassic Park is.
Yeah.
Because they're two different mediums. So you can't tell the exact same story. You can't just take the book and copy it and do screenplay and, oh, there's your movie. Like, for example, you had all those awesome prologues in the book where you're trying to figure out who this little dinosaur is, and then all the little other happenings that were happening when, like, the infant was killed and all that. And, like, it's great. It's a great slow burn setup for this whole story. But if you were to put that in a movie, it'd be like 30 minutes, like, okay, who is the main character? What's going on? So you have to make some choices to tell the best narrative possible. And I feel like that's what Spielberg did in this case. I mean, it's hard, like you said, Danny, it's hard to fault Spielberg for anything. He's such a good director and a good storyteller. But I think he takes kind of the moments with heart, and he really focuses on those, and really tries to capitalize on that. And I think one of the hard things about this book is that, I mean, Grant is obviously the main character, but he has like relatively little screen time compared to some of the other characters. Like Hammond's in it a lot. And Nedry's in it quite a bit too. I mean, you always go back to Grant in the end, but I feel like Spielberg, had to choose a character to follow. So obviously Grant is the main choice. So I think that's why he decided to give him the character arc of, not liking the kids to liking them, so that he has some sort of journey, because he wants to have your main character either, change in himself or be a catalyst of change around him. And he wasn't going to be that catalyst of change because the science is the catalyst of change. So there had to be something there. And I think that's why Spielberg made that choice, which I think worked. Again, I'm not going to fault Spielberg for anything almost.
Well, you've got the cool, my son brought me the movie. I don't know if you can see it, but Michael Crichton wrote the screenplay. So
nice. I did not realize that.
He was able to really, he was able to really get the things he wanted into the movie, I think. And I think that's why so many of the lines come over, because he was like, I really like this line when I wrote it. I want to make sure it makes it to the movie.
It's fun when an author writes his own screenplay, and it almost never happens. But when it does, and when it's done well, sometimes there can be some detriment there because they hold on so much to the things that they want to see. But when you have like someone else like Spielberg come in and like direct it and craft it and morph it into what they want it to be, but you still have the author having a lot of insight and input into the story that's being told on screen, that's usually when the magic happens.
Absolutely. Well, and I think Crichton and Spielberg were already connected in some way.
Yes.
So I think the level of trust was pretty high in that relationship. So I'm sure while they were creating the screenplay, certain feedback was provided, and Crichton probably went with Spielberg's vision because of the fact that, and as you very well know, Ryan, things that happen on paper don't necessarily translate the best on screen.
Mm-hmm.
So to format a film into a 2-hour time frame, to get all the most significant, most impactful, most cinematic value in a film, you have to make some cuts, and you have to make the story fit for so many different viewers, because you have to understand too, like, yes, there are a lot of people that enjoy dinosaurs, but there are people that are kind of like, dinosaurs. The film is still great for people who are like dinosaurs, but they have the
exactly.
There
has to be a good story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's just crazy to note that like Spielberg was directing this movie. I mean, not at the exact same time, but like back to back with Schindler's List.
Yes.
So you've got, two of his most popular movies, but on two totally different sides of the storytelling spectrum. So like trying to get your brain wrapped around like the horror of Schindler's List to like the magic and scariness, but the magic of dinosaurs, like, and come out with fantastic movies on both end. Like, how does one do that? I mean, you're Spielberg. That's why. That's how.
Yeah. So many so many directors are like that too, where they're just bombarded. And I think from the movies that made us, I think they said he was editing Jurassic Park at night and directing Schindler's List.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, what a juxtaposition. Like, dinosaurs and Nazis. Like,
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Something that's completely understated is the music in the movie. It created such an atmosphere. I shared on the Boxer that video that like YouTube was just like, hey, I think you might like this. And it was a breakdown of the film's music and how they used the music to kind of with different tones in different ways, that like the theme was used in the beginning for hopefulness, and then kind of when things went wrong, the tone was used in a darker, more like lower register for. They break it down great. If you're in the maybe I'll share it in the chat too. But it was a great video that broke down completely like how the music was used in the movie in a way that a book can create atmosphere through a bunch of words, and a movie can create atmosphere through some music.
Yeah, yeah.
Do it.
Awesome.
So good.
It was a great video.
Yay. I got it.
I seriously can't believe that Naomi has not seen Jurassic Park.
That's
You're in for a treat.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Good for you.
I totally didn't even see that comment before I said it.
And it brings together horror. Like it really is. Like there are moments of complete horror in this movie where you just look at it and you go, I'm enjoying being scared.
Yeah. Oh, and I don't even know if this scene is in the book. I won't go into spoilers, but the electric fence scene in the movie, like I was freaked out as a kid, almost more than the dinosaurs. Just the tension that is built there.
The high tension music when he's climbing, and we know things are happening because we can see Ellie flipping switches, and you're like, what's gonna go? I think I'm gonna go.
I'm pretty sure as a kid I walked out of the room during that part because I just couldn't handle the tension.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's, again, a mark of a good, filmmaker and crew, because
So bad, right?
if the music would have been like, meh, it'd have been okay. It would have like been such a different movie. I mean, just a different movie.
Yes. Well, on that note, Danny, I remember when I saw Jurassic World, the quasi reboot in theaters, and you had the moment where you finally see the whole park, and like John Williams' music happens at that point, and you're like, yes, this is Jurassic Park. Like we're back.
Yes.
It just ties everything together.
It's so iconic. I mean, you hear it in something else, in a spoof or something, and you're watching, the spoof, maybe Simpsons or whatever it is, but you're thinking about the movie. You're seeing the gates open. You're seeing these things happen. You're seeing them, pan up and looking at the huge tree trunks of a dinosaur. I mean, just amazing. And, John Williams, such an amazing composer on all of these films that you will always remember the music.
And it's crazy because like
you're like, I don't.
Oh yeah, that's the problem with so many movies these days. This is my rant. Is like I struggle to remember a recent movie where like the music was memorable. But then you have John Williams, who not only did Jurassic Park, but he did like 10 other themes that are like instantly recognizable by most of the world, like regardless of whether you've seen the movie or not.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like
That's
Star
a
Wars and
genius.
Harry Potter, and then Jurassic Park. I mean, those are three major franchises, and it's
Yeah.
often just like a few notes, and you know exactly what the movie
Oh
is,
yeah.
exactly what he's trying to convey. You can see everything in your brain with just like 4 or 5 notes. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's
Jaws, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, like any of it. It's all so good.
I think he did Home Alone. I mean,
Yeah.
you know that music. You put
Oh,
that
yeah.
music on, I'm like, It's got
Naomi, my wife had not watched the movie either because she didn't care about dinosaurs. And then all of a sudden they put Chris Pratt in the new movies. And she's like, oh, now I have to watch the movies. So she's seen it now, but it was after we've been married. She actually watched it with the kids the first time we ever watched it.
Nice.
But in her chorus in 8th grade, they sang the theme song. So
Yeah.
she knew the theme song of Jurassic Park and had never watched the movie. And I was like, how does that work? She's like, I don't like dinosaurs. I was like,
Yeah.
Well,
like,
I
how do you
feel-
not like dinosaurs?
I feel like every single high school band does John Williams music at some point.
Yeah, it was a whole method that we did, and I refound pictures, which are horrifying. It's the mid '90s. I mean, like the fashions are fantastic. I like forgot we had a big ET coming out on this thing, and we had all these different like flags for different kinds of dinosaurs. We would like switch them and roll them through, and
Nice.
we had like I mean, it was really really cool to see all those pictures again. I should try and post them, but yeah, I mean, it was the whole John Williams thing, and it was so much, so many things, and that was just the mid '90s, not even
Yeah.
past that, you know. It's
So much more since then, yeah. And it's sad that John Williams is pretty much retired at this point. But I mean, he did like every Steven Spielberg movie from like Jaws until like a couple movies ago. So like 30 years of Steven Spielberg movies were all John Williams, which is crazy.
I bet his Academy Award shelf is like
yeah.
bigger than our bookshelf.
Yeah. Well, if you factor in his nominations, I think it's in the 30s. It's crazy. Yeah.
It's amazing what you can do with good music.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, my dogs are barking because I think my husband's home.
No
Anywho,
worries.
My kids got all
yeah,
wet
I
from the
mean,
rain.
I can't wait to see what Victoria comes up with her special video for our
Yes.
because it's
That's gonna be great.
The music is what makes some of this movie wonderful. So
Mhm. It's
Awesome.
like if you watch that movie that scene that you mentioned a few times now, Danny, when Grant first sees the dinosaurs. Like I challenge anyone watching this to like go and watch that scene without sound at all. Like it'll seem kind of dumb,
mhm.
but then you throw in the music and it becomes like the most magical thing in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liken that, and we keep referring to this. So I hope everyone who's watching goes and watches the Netflix edition of Jurassic Park for the movies that made us. But when they do the little montage of like, because the actors themselves weren't seeing dinosaurs,
Right.
they were doing CGI. So when he's like takes his glasses off or like puts his glasses up or, you know, like,
Yeah.
it was really funny to me the ways that they kind of tried to figure out how to react to something that wasn't there. Really cracked me up because I hadn't noticed it before.
Yeah.
Until they did like up, down, off, to the side, squinting. You know, like I'm like, oh my gosh, or where he falls down because he's just so overwhelmed. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so true because as a viewer, he's seeing the dinosaurs.
Yeah. Well, I think Spielberg mentioned in that documentary, he's like, yeah, I know that like if someone sees something, they're not gonna like take their glasses off to see better, but it's or like to take their sunglasses off. But it's like it's that moment of just that awe, like you're just fumbling with something.
Yeah.
He was trying to get that across, which it worked well.
Yeah.
I
think
watched
it worked
something
out
like
great.
that. I watched something like that with the Harry Potter movies when they meet the horses you can't see with wings.
Oh, the
Oh, sure.
Thestrals.
Yeah.
So, like some of them can see them and some of them can't.
Yeah.
So like the reaction of like some of the kids is totally normal because they're like, I don't know what we're looking at here. And then the other guys, it was a person holding a tennis ball on a stick.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so that was their like cue point.
Yeah.
So they were like, you know, pretending they're petting this thing,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
and it was just a tennis ball on a stick.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
a
it's
lot of-
always fun to see like when you know something is fake as an adult. Like as a kid, you're in this suspended fantasy. You know, you don't
Mhm.
know anything better. But it's funny because you can see their eye line is never like exactly right to where they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Close, but you're like, oh, they're not looking in the right spot.
Yeah.
The worst I've ever seen, and it doesn't bother me because they're some of my favorite movies, but in the Back to the Future trilogy, where they have like same actors playing different characters, and they have that like thing. The worst is in the third one where Marty McFly meets Hamish. And they're like moving together, but he's playing the same characters. So like, but he's looking over here, but Hamish is here, and it's like, so
Yeah. The eye lines don't match up.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's always fun to me, but I never notice it in Jurassic Park. It's just fantastic.
Yeah. Spielberg at his finest.
We are at the hour mark. We just have
That was
one
fast.
Yeah, I know. We just have one last, I don't know if I would call this a question, but, does anyone have any predictions? I know this is hard because we've seen the movie. Some of us have read this book before, but do we have any predictions on what could possibly happen in our second half of the book?
My prediction would be somebody who lives in the movie dies in the book.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good one.
Like maybe the director or somebody just really liked a character and didn't want to kill him off in the movie.
Yeah.
But the book feels more brutal.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, because that scientist who is looking at the is the Stegosaurus who's sick? I think. Yeah.
The doctor. Yeah.
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 His name is Dr. Harding, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Isn't that the name of what's her face's character in the Lost World, the movie? Is it Sarah Harding? I think.
Oh, I can't remember. I'm not sure.
The actress, the main actress is in it. So I'm wondering, like, if I'm remembering correctly, if they took one character and like put them in another movie. So I wonder if that scientist character will die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a prediction, but just I don't know, question.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think too with the book, I feel like
You are correct.
my prediction. So we know that PR guy like runs out of the Jeep and like runs away. In the movie, that character who like runs away gets eaten away. We see that. But in this one, he just runs away. And I keep thinking about that baby T-Rex that they kept talking about in the beginning, like that is around the lagoon and everything. And I'm thinking, I think that baby T-Rex is going to get some lunch. Like,
you're probably right.
Like, that's what I keep thinking. I'm like, ooh, I think that guy who ran away, like a little baby, is going to go and meet the baby T-Rex. That's my prediction.
I buy it.
Yeah, I think, like Naomi said, a lot of death. All bets are off. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the craziness has started.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Insanity will pursue. I'm excited to see too, like how the raptor situation will kind of become known. Like, oh my gosh. And that is the most like heart-wrenching, when she has to race to the generator.
Yeah.
And she finds that guy's arm. Ugh.
Oh yeah.
And then the hunter guy, and the famous line, clever girl. Yeah. It's scary. So I'm like really nervous for that scene in the book because it's gonna get my heart racing. But yeah, so thank you all so very much for joining me today and having a little bit of fun talking about Jurassic Park. I appreciate your time so much and everything that you have done already for the read-along. I hope everyone that is joining us, if you haven't taken part in the bingo cards, there's a lot of fun to be had there. There is a bingo card for September. And there is a bingo card for October for Lost World when we get into that. We also have Ramsey's Discord channel, so please feel free to jump into that.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's real fun. And I believe I have everything in the description, all of the links and everything. And then, of course, we have upcoming videos from Ryan and Victoria and Sarah. So we have lots of fun things planned. Our next live discussion, which will be the final discussion for Jurassic Park, we'll finish the book up, will be on Friday, October 1st at 7 p.m. here on my channel. So that's 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So you may see some of the same faces. You may see some fresh faces. But that'll be the end of the book. So all of you, when you're done with this, you can go and finish the book right up, because I know you're all waiting to figure out what's going on there.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you all so very much for being here. I really, truly appreciate it. It's so fun to talk to you, and you're all so smart and have so many amazing ideas about the book. So thanks, Ryan and Ramsey and Laura. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for hosting, putting this together, Danny. This has been a blast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
Just got to go read quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, until Friday, October 1st, I will see you all then, and happy reading. Bye, everyone.
Bye.